Winter arrived early that year, dumping heavy snow across the neighborhood overnight. I stepped outside my house, coffee in hand, and smiled as my snow-clearing robot quietly rolled down the driveway, efficiently pushing snow aside like it always did. I had invested in it after years of brutal winters, and it worked perfectly. Apparently, that bothered the HOA. By noon, I found a bright orange notice taped to my mailbox. I laughed. My property wasn't even fully inside HOA jurisdiction, but that had never stopped them before. At the center of it all was Karen, the HOA president. She believed rules applied to everyone except herself. That afternoon, while I was at work, Karen made her move. Security footage later showed her marching onto my driveway with 2 HOA helpers. Without knocking or leaving notice, they loaded my snow-clearing robot into a truck and drove away.
No paperwork.
No warning, just theft. When I got home and saw the empty driveway, I was furious, but not panicked. Because Karen didn't know something important. The robot was still connected to my phone. Using the app, I checked its status. Location: Karen's house. That's when an idea formed. The next morning, I woke up early, made myself a cup of coffee, and opened the control panel. Karen lived at the end of a cul-de-sac, where snow naturally piled up. I gently adjusted the robot's route, overriding its default settings. The machine came to life. Instead of clearing snow away, it began pushing every bit of loose snow directly toward Karen's front walkway. Then her porch. Then her front door. Hour after hour, the robot worked tirelessly, piling snow higher and higher. By the time Karen woke up, her front door was completely blocked. She tried the back door, also buried. Windows?
Snowed in.
She was trapped in her own house by the very machine she had stolen. Neighbors watched in disbelief as Karen screamed through a cracked window, demanding help. Someone called the HOA board. Someone else called a snow removal service. But the streets were too slick, and crews were delayed. Eventually, Karen called the police. When the officer arrived, I showed up too, remote control app open on my phone. I calmly explained everything. The theft, the lack of authority, and the robot's registration under my name. Karen tried to argue, but the security footage shut her down instantly. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, you stole private property. That's not an HOA issue. That's theft." Karen was forced to pay a fine, return the robot, and issue a written apology. The HOA quietly removed every violation notice they'd ever sent me. After that winter, Karen resigned as HOA president. My robot? It's back where it belongs, clearing my driveway. And every time it hums to life, I smile, remembering how karma arrived one snowdrift at a time. The snowstorm didn't end with Karen trapped behind her front door. In fact, that moment was only the beginning of a much larger unraveling, one that exposed just how rotten the HOA had become under her leadership. By mid-morning, half the neighborhood was outside, bundled in coats and scarves, whispering and pointing at Karen's house. Snow had piled so high against her front entrance that it looked like a frozen wave mid-crash. Her porch railing had vanished. The welcome mat was nowhere to be seen. Only the top of her doorframe was visible beneath the white wall. Karen screamed from inside, her voice muffled but unmistakable. "This is harassment. This is illegal. Someone do something." People exchanged looks, some biting back smiles. Others pulled out their phones. When the police cruiser finally arrived, it struggled just to make it into the cul-de-sac. The officer stepped out carefully, boots crunching, clearly unimpressed by the spectacle. Karen shouted through a partially opened upstairs window, demanding immediate action. I arrived a few minutes later, parking calmly at the edge of the street. I didn't need to rush. I already knew how this would end. The officer listened as Karen ranted about HOA authority and rule enforcement. She claimed my robot was confiscated under HOA rules and that I had maliciously trapped her inside her own home. When it was my turn to speak, I handed over everything: a property survey, our robot registration app, control logs, security footage showing Karen stealing it from my driveway. The officer didn't even need 5 minutes. "Ma'am," he said to Karen firmly, You trespassed, stole private property, and misused it. HOA rules do not override state law. Karen's face went pale. Neighbors murmured. Phones kept recording. The officer ordered the robot returned immediately and warned Karen that further action could result in charges. She was also fined for obstruction and theft. But the real damage came afterward. Within hours, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Karen tried to spin the situation, sending out an email claiming she had acted in the community's best interest. Unfortunately for her, multiple residents responded with screenshots, footage, and prior complaints she had ignored for years. That meeting was explosive. Residents stood up one after another, airing grievances Karen had dismissed. Unfair fines, selective enforcement, intimidation, threats, and unauthorized property seizures. It turned out my robot wasn't the first thing she'd taken, just the first time someone fought back with proof. By the end of the meeting, Karen was removed as HOA president by unanimous vote. But karma wasn't finished. The HOA's lawyer conducted an internal review and discovered something worse. Karen had been issuing fines outside HOA jurisdiction for years, pocketing administrative fees through a private account disguised as processing costs. That discovery triggered a full audit. Over the next month, the HOA refunded tens of thousands of dollars to residents. Karen was forced to repay money, stepped down entirely, and later faced civil charges. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the neighborhood changed dramatically. The new HOA leadership sent me a formal letter, not a violation notice, but an apology. They acknowledged the theft, confirmed my property rights, and clarified that my driveway and equipment were never under HOA authority. They also updated the rules. No HOA member could confiscate property. No enforcement without written notice. No action outside defined boundaries. As for Karen, she stopped showing her face in public. Her once pristine reputation crumbled. Neighbors avoided her. Invitations stopped. Even her closest supporters distanced themselves when they realized how much trouble she'd caused. Winter continued, but peacefully. Every snowfall after that felt different. When my robot rolled down the driveway, neighbors waved. Some even joked about borrowing it, politely, legally. One afternoon, a family across the street knocked on my door. Their elderly father struggled with shoveling, and they asked if I could help clear his driveway. I smiled and said yes. That night, as the robot quietly worked under the glow of streetlights, I realized something important. Power isn't about control, it's about responsibility. Karen had tried to rule through fear. I simply let the truth do the work. By spring, Karen listed her house for sale. The listing photos carefully avoided the front entrance. And when the snow finally melted, one thing remained buried forever. Spring didn't just melt the snow, it melted illusions. When the ice finally retreated from the streets, what remained was the raw truth of what Karen had done to this neighborhood.
People stopped pretending.
The polite smiles vanished. Doors that once opened for her now stayed closed. And that was only the beginning. The HOA's audit expanded beyond Karen's time as president. What started as a review of her actions with my snow-clearing robot turned into a full forensic investigation. Financial records were pulled, emails subpoenaed, vendor contracts re-examined, and buried beneath years of paperwork was something no one expected, except maybe Karen herself. She had been running the HOA like a personal empire. Maintenance contracts awarded to friends. Landscaping invoices inflated. Emergency snow services billed at triple market rates, even when no emergency existed. And worst of all, selective enforcement fines that conveniently targeted residents who challenged her authority. People like me. One by one, neighbors came forward. A retired couple forced to pay thousands for improper lawn angles. A single mother fined for leaving her trash bin out 10 minutes late every week. A veteran threatened with legal action for flying the wrong size flag. Karen hadn't enforced rules. She weaponized them. By early April, the HOA's law firm issued a formal notice. Karen Fuller was under civil investigation for fraud, abuse of authority, and misappropriation of funds. The neighborhood grapevine exploded. Karen stopped answering her phone. Her curtains stayed drawn. And for the first time since she moved in, her driveway remained empty. Until one afternoon. I was on my porch when a moving truck rolled slowly past my house and turned into Karen's driveway. Two men stepped out and began carrying boxes, quickly, quietly, like they didn't want to be seen. Neighbors noticed. Someone whispered, "She's running."
She was.
But not before trying one last move. 3 days later, I received a certified letter. Inside was a legal threat accusing me of harassment, intimidation, emotional distress, and deliberate endangerment related to the snow incident. I laughed out loud. She was desperate. I forwarded the letter to the HOA's attorney and attached my security footage, police report, robot logs, timestamps, and witness statements. The response came back the next morning. Please disregard the letter. Ms. Fuller no longer represents the HOA. Further contact from her should be reported immediately. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Karen showed up at the next HOA meeting anyway. She stormed into the community hall like she still owned the place, shouting about betrayal, conspiracies, and outside agitators. But the room was different now. No one flinched. The board chair calmly asked her to leave. When she refused, the police were called, not for intimidation this time, but for trespassing. Watching Karen escorted out of the meeting she once ruled felt surreal. This was the same woman who used to fine people for mismatched flower pots. Power evaporates quickly when it's built on fear. Summer arrived quietly. The HOA finalized new leadership. Transparency rules were implemented. Monthly financial reports became mandatory. Enforcement authority was clearly defined and limited. And something else happened, something unexpected. Residents began talking to each other. Block parties returned. Kids played in the streets. People helped shovel snow without invoices attached. Karen's absence created space for community. As for her house, it sat unsold. Weeks passed. Then months. The market was hot, but her property lingered. Buyers asked questions. Realtors whispered about lawsuits and HOA drama. Some even recognized the address from viral videos circulating online, videos neighbors had posted after the snow incident. Yes, it went viral. Millions of views. People loved the irony, the poetic justice, the moment an HOA bully met technology and accountability. Karen became a cautionary tale. Eventually, the house sold at a loss. She moved out quietly. No farewell email.
No apology.
Just gone. Winter returned the following year. The first snowfall dusted the streets softly, almost respectfully. When my robot rolled out, it cleared not just my driveway, but 2 others nearby, neighbors who asked politely. No one complained. No one stole anything. And no one tried to control what wasn't theirs. One night, as snowflakes drifted down under streetlights, I stood on my porch and watched the robot work. It moved methodically, efficiently, doing exactly what it was designed to do. And I realized something. Karen never lost because of snow. She lost because she believed authority came from position, not trust. She thought power meant taking. I proved it meant knowing when not to. And somewhere beneath layers of melted snow and buried arrogance, an entire neighborhood learned the same lesson equals.